be patient with things. You don't always have to take the first offer that comes up. You don't always have to make snap decisions. Knee-jerk reactions have no defenses. And if you don't have a defense mechanism up to really protect your long-term play, you end up making short-term decisions.
Everything is possible. Just hustle. Just hustle.
The $1 Million Hustle Podcast, where we keep it real, unstated entrepreneurship wisdom. Learn to think like a millionaire and hustle like you're broke. Here's your host, Billy the Kid, aka Billionaire.
Everything is possible. Just hustle. Just hustle. Everything is possible. Just hustle.
Welcome to the $1 Million Hustle Podcast, baby. It is your boy Billy the Kid, aka BDK, aka Billionaire in this mug. Man, just got off doing an awesome interview. I don't want to spoil it just yet. Wow, it was fire. And so get ready to change your life. Again, this show, you're going to learn how to think like a millionaire and hustle like you're broke. Learn how to think like a millionaire. Guys, like, I'm telling you, it's a life-changing podcast. And if you haven't yet, make sure you guys subscribe. Follow me on Spotify, Pandora, and that's for my music, actually, too. I'm on Apple, whether it's the podcast section or the music section. And if anything, if you don't do any of those, subscribe to my YouTube channel, Billy the Kid, DHAKIDD. I post vlogs, podcast, music, everything that I got going on. Stay in contact. Hit me up. Let me know. Give me feedback. And please leave us a review anywhere you're listening. This thing is just taking off, and shout out to all of you guys listening. I truly appreciate it. And I just want to real quick let you guys know the Power of Being Uncomfortable is out everywhere. The Audible version is out everywhere. I'm a musician, so you already know that I did something different with the Audible version, with the audio version. So please go listen to it there or anywhere audiobooks are available. And if you want an autographed copy, BillyTheKid.com. If you don't want an autographed copy, shame on you. You could go to Amazon. You could go to Barnes & Noble or anywhere else books are available. Grab a copy. It is a life-changing book. That's how we're doing it, man. I've been thinking lately, it's just crazy. Everything you do it big, right? Like, go out there and just do it the best that you can. Do it as big as you can, right? Like, if you're going to buy a car, buy the best car you could get. If you're going to get a house, do the same. And guys, there's levels. Don't get me wrong. Also, don't go overboard with this this tip that I'm giving you, this advice. But what I'm saying is do it as big as you can, guys, because from there, you're going to grow to the next step, the next level of your life. So always do it big. Whatever it is that you're doing, eat at the best restaurants, get the best house, get the best car. Literally with your kids, wife, like if you're single, take the best trips. Do it up. Trust me, do it the biggest that you can. And that is how you level up to the next level. Anything, get the best shoes, get the best shirt, the best TV. I don't know, just and I wouldn't recommend TV so much unless you're watching the $1 Million Hustle podcast. But if you're gonna get a TV, get the biggest TV out there. If you get pets, get the best pets, right? Like full breeds. Like just do the best that you can in life, and that is how you level up to the next level. And the episode that we're doing today, guys, is no different. You're going to hear this man over and over, how he's just crushing it from hanging out with Grant Cardone. We talked about that, and he actually works for Cody with Clever Investors, guys. And those of you who don't know, do your research, because Cody, he's just killing it. And if those of you who don't know, he's that guy with that ad, right, that we all know, where he's just showing up with a big old check to Chase Bank. I hope Chase Bank paid him up, because Cody killed it with those ads. But Forrest Blackburn, guys, that's who we have on the podcast today. And wow, shout out to him, man. He dropped so many gems today. This was, again, another life-changing episode. And if you're ready to level up, guys, this is the podcast where you want to be, because today's episode, I mean, this dude started at 19 with his first flip. And so just imagine how much he's done since. If he started that young, and You know, it's crazy. Shout out to him. But when I asked that question, what would be the best piece of advice at the end of the show that we ask every guest? What's the best piece of advice you would give your younger self? It's just crazy to think how young he was from the beginning, and he had some great advice. And throughout the podcast, that's all you're gonna hear. So, great episode. Before we jump in, if you need any lending, please hit me up. Shout out to all the mastermind, the whole squad, the Get Uncomfortable mastermind. Every individual is killing it. If you're ready to level up, guys, we're getting pretty full, but I'm gonna just hit me up, info@billythekid.com. If you're interested, shoot us your story, what you got going on, where are you heading, and if we like the story and we think you're a good fit for the Get Uncomfortable Mastermind, we're going to let you in. As of right now, I am doing one-on-one coaching. I don't know how long that's going to be for, so don't let it slip, info@billythekid.com to get some information. But with no further ado, man, I'm just ready. I'm ready to jump in. Here is Forrest Blackburn. Let's get it. Vamonos. Welcome to the $1 Million Hustle Podcast, baby, where you're going to learn how to think like a millionaire and hustle like you're broke. And again, guys, when I say think like a millionaire, you have to become that 7-figure earner. And today, I am excited because our guest knows a little something about that. Forrest, how you doing, man?
I'm good, man. How you doing? Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Good. I'm excited, man. We were just talking off the recording a little bit. You have quite a resume, man. So real quick, if we just dive in, if you could let our listeners know, where are you from and kind of how you got to where you're at now. Where were you born and all that good stuff?
All the whole story. All right, cool. Well, I'm born and raised in Southern California in San Diego. And spent most of my life up until very recently in Southern California, San Diego, Orange County, Los Angeles. I went to Pepperdine University in Malibu. I was an actor when I was a kid, and I did music when I was a kid. And when I was 19, I had saved up some money, and that's when I bought my first flip, my first property. I was lucky enough to be able to pay cash for that. And I think I bought it for about $215,000 and put about $45,000 into it, and then sold that and did a 1031 exchange, which is an exchange into another property, condominium in Orange County, and made some money on that. And then I took all of that money and I put it into a brand new, beautiful record label that failed. So had to start all over from there, but I became a full-time musician. I was signed to Capitol Records and toured around and was fortunate enough to get radio play and have a lot of fun. And that was all in my 20s. That kind of turned into work. And there was lawsuits happening. And so I started doing marketing for Capitol Records, and then moved over to do marketing for Paramount Pictures. And then I got a phone call from the UFC out in Vegas, and they wanted me to come be their music supervisor. So I went out there, and I was out in Vegas for about a year. And I was in charge of all the music for all their fights and all their documentaries and their TV shows. And because I was 100% in charge and it was all my decision, I licensed all my own music. And it was the smartest thing that I ever did. And it's mailbox money every quarter, and it still keeps rolling. So that's pretty fortunate. But when I was at Paramount, a lot of our budget allocations were being shifted over to digital marketing. Google, Facebook had just come out. I was having the MySpace days previous to that. So I really wanted to get into, what that looked like. So moved back from Vegas and got into digital marketing, and worked with a company for a while to kind of learn how it worked, and then started up my own company with 7 reps, and grew that over the course of about 8 years to 1,500 reps nationwide and 17 franchises, resellers that would resell the brand under a label that I would give them. Kind of turned it into a monster. And from there, I started doing private consulting with Fortune 100s and 500s on scaling. So it's always been scaling on the sales side and on the marketing side to generate more cash flow, more revenue. And then I got a phone call from HGTV and notably Flipper Flop and Tarek El Moussa to come in and build their company, Tarek Buys Houses, and grew that for about 2 years. And that's what really took me out of working with multiple niches and just working in real estate, which had been something that I'm 4th generation real estate. So my dad was a commercial realtor, commercial broker, developer, and so was his dad and his dad. And so it's always been in my blood. I've been out looking at properties since I was a kid. So really focusing on scaling these brands behind the TV shows so they would have content got me into understanding the investment side, and started growing my personal portfolio. And when I left working with Tarek, I'd done some deals with a gentleman by the name of Cody Sperber, aka the Clever Investor. And when I became a free agent, he said, "Come help me build my company." So I've been working there, as well as I'm a coach and a mentor, and I work with about 36 different companies right now, helping them scale their businesses. And this is everybody from people that are doing $400,000 to $500,000 a month, down to the folks that are just lucky enough to make $100,000 a year doing it and want to turn that into an actual business. And my focus is always chewing the fat, figuring out where the vampires are in your credit card statements, figuring out how to be more efficient, putting better operating procedures in place and processes and systems, and really building ecosystems so that you can build on those people and grow your company. But it's all about cutting corners and making sure that those corners are things that make you more money. Most of them are financial hurts that are very easily identifiable. Yeah, and that brings me to where I'm at today, working on these multi-billion-dollar portfolio deals and still wholesale. But I'm able to be around a lot of very high-level people and high net wealth individuals and learn from them. And it's a lot of fun on the daily, for sure.
Woo! Man, quite a resume. I got so many questions.
There's been a lot of chapters, for sure. That's true.
Yeah, I love that. And it's funny. The first question that I had was, how did you, at 19 years old, you said you had cash, like, to buy that first flip. Can you tell us a little bit of how that came about? Because that, at that age, man, that's I think everybody listening, myself included, like, I wish I would have done it then.
Well, you know what? It was because I was an actor as a kid, and I did some TV and some commercials. I did a lot of theater when I was a kid, national theater in New York, theater in Seattle, theater in LA, national tours. And it's just, when you're a kid, things aren't that expensive. You don't have expensive taste. Mom and dad are still, running the household and putting the food on the table. So it was easy for me to accumulate that money. And I always knew that from a very early age, it takes money to make money. So I wanted to make sure that I could accumulate money so that I could do something with it. Going back in time, I wish, looking at that first property that I purchased when I was 19 in Burbank, California, I purchased it for $215. I sold it for $385. I looked it up a few months back, and it's worth over $1 million now. So
wow.
Definitely want to kick myself for that. But I didn't know then what I know now. There was no short-term rental market back then. There was no such thing as Airbnb. I would have held those properties. I would have held those, built up the equity, had the cash flow. But, we don't know what we don't know. And, knowing now, I can reflect on all of those things that I went through and apply what I know now to that, and really turn those things into, more learning experiences. And it helps me pivot through business a lot more now. But it was just, accumulating my money, not blowing it. So many times, even in wholesale, a lot of the students that I work with, they'll make, 60, 80, $100,000 on a deal. And they want to go out and buy Sea-Doos. They want to go out and buy a Lambo. They want to go out and buy, whatever, a diamond watch. And that's not going to make you money unless you're doing YouTube videos and, you can build an audience based on your bling. But for me, it's if you're an investor, or you call yourself an investor, and you've got a bunch of cash sitting in your account, you're not truly an investor. So for me, I'm constantly taking money and putting it into assets and putting it into properties. And I love that. That makes me run faster, right? I can't look at my account and be like, oh my gosh, I got millions of dollars in there. It motivates me to continue to keep my foot on the gas pedal and buy more properties that will make, wealth generating opportunities over the years that, will take care of my kids. And that's always my biggest motivator.
Wow. That was amazing. The whole cash thing is so true. I had a few episodes back, somebody did say the same thing. Like, they had this $1 million in their head and they finally got it. And they even said it. They're like, well, which looking back now, it's kind of stupid seeing it in the bank. I love that you said, like, just reinvesting, just recycling the capital. I love that. It's something that I definitely strive for myself. Like, anytime there's cash sitting there, I'm like, nope, let's go. And which is easy to get rid of too with real estate.
Oh no, absolutely it is. I mean, clearly, you have to make sure that you're buying the right deals and you're vetting them properly. For me, it's all about cash flow. So I have a pretty decent short-term rental portfolio, and I'm constantly building that. As a matter of fact, I bought a property on Friday, and I'm buying another property this morning. I'm just waiting to hear back on the realtor, and I do a lot of things on sub 2. So if for those of you out there who don't know what sub 2 necessarily is, we don't necessarily have to go into it here, but you can see a lot of courses that Pace Morby puts out. Awesome guy, very, very genuine guy, and he always shoots straight. So where I think the property last week, I put down $51,000 on a $600,000 house. This is not bank finance. There's no credit involved. There's nothing like that. You just put down the down payment that you work out. And then I've got monthly payments of $1,600 a month for 7 years. And then at that 7 years, I can either sell the property and pay off that balloon payment, or get a loan and pay off that balloon payment. But it's going to cash flow me about $56,000 a year net operating income. So, and then the one today that I'm picking up is only costing me $15,000, and it's a $500,000 property, and that's going to cash flow me another $48,000 a year net. So, these are low hanging fruit things that you can find out there. You just have to be willing to look. You have to be willing to negotiate, and you got to know what you're talking about to be able to get these things locked up. But you can grow a portfolio. 2 houses, right, in a week for basically $65,000. And that is far less than the 20% down payment that you would have to do on a traditional finance to buy either one of them. So, there's ways to get this done and ways to grow it. But for me, it's always deploying capital into something that's going to create a cash flow and build equity and build long-term wealth.
Since you're huge on sales, what do you think, what would be the key to make customers agree to the sub 2? And especially those that have no idea, like obviously you got to educate them on what it is, but what do you think is like the biggest tip you could give somebody for the customer or the client to say yes?
Well, you said one key word there, and educate. So much of the sales process is education. Most of the sellers that you're talking to, even if they're a landlord, don't really know much about real estate except for that they slept in a house last night. Mm-hmm. So educating them on where the market is, educating them on, for sub 2, I have explainer videos. I have cartoon videos that I've created. So these are very simple. They're very friendly. And it really walks through the process in a very non-aggressive, very passive kind of way to let them know that this is something that's done widely. And that there's nothing nefarious about it, that this is a very legal, buttoned up process. There's a lot of contracts in place. The biggest thing that I find that sellers are apprehensive to on, say, a sub 2 agreement, with sub 2, you're keeping the debt instrument in place. So their loan stays in place. And the only reason for that is most of these folks, or at least the good deals that you want to go after, have very low interest rates. And right now we're looking at diving into almost 7.5% interest. That's coming down the barrel very shortly. If I can find somebody who has a loan on their property at 2.5% or even 3%, as an investor, I don't want to lose that 3 or 4% trying to go to the bank to get a loan to pay off their loan. The only person that makes money there is the bank. So explaining to them that by keeping that debt instrument in place, there's more value. I can offer them more value for the property if they keep that debt instrument in place. And the apprehension that the seller has is, well, how am I going to go get another loan if I have this existing loan in place? Well, there's a lot of folks out there that have car loans, that have boats, that have second homes. They're easy to get those loans as long as your debt to income ratio looks good to the bank. In a sub 2 agreement, you have a third party agreement. It's a contract to service that debt, to service that monthly payment. So in effect, when a creditor looks at the seller's debt to income ratio on a new loan, it becomes a moot point because they realize that that's not really a debt that their income has to service. It's being serviced by a third party in a long-term contract. And additionally, the seller wins no matter what in that scenario. If I follow through, I give them a down payment. So let's take the house that I got on Friday. If I give them the $50,000, that's their down payment and theirs to keep. The $1,600 a month that I'm going to pay to them is going to go on for at least 7 years. Let's say in year 4, and the capital improvements that I do to the property, right? If I add and make an addition, or if I put in marble flooring, or God knows whatever. Let's say in year 4, I default on those payments for 90 days. Something happens, the world falls apart. They're able to take that property back and foreclose on it because they're in position to do so. They get that 50 grand they've already kept. All those $1,600 payments that I've made to them monthly, they get to keep. The capital improvements on the property, they get to keep. So they win really big. It's kind of like a lot of the used car dealers where they'll finance anybody and they do a really high interest rate. And really their business model is that they hope that you're actually going to default on that car loan in 3 or 6 months so that they can go resell the car again and again and again and just keep doing that whole model. So from a seller standpoint, if I were to default on that, they win. But if I stick to my contract, they still win. And the nice part about that is I'm not giving them $600,000 in a lump sum that's going to put them into a whole different tax bracket come next tax season where they're going to have to pay an ungodly amount. They're only seeing that $50,000. They're seeing $1,600 a month. And in 7 years from now, I will have eaten into the overall 600 minus 50 is 550. I will have eaten into that 550 over 7 years. So the amount of money I pay out to them on a balloon is going to be smaller. So again, it just makes a lot of sense from a tax perspective. So I do a lot of things with sub 2 and seller finance. There's another thing called a wrap, very similar to sub 2. In sub 2, you're paying the debt instrument one payment and you're paying the seller on their equity payment. A wrap is all the way around, and typically you're paying the seller the entire amount and the seller is left up to pay their note directly to the bank. But banks don't care who's paying their payment as long as the payment is being made. And as long as if Cindy stays on her loan and the payments are being made, the bank really doesn't bat an eyelash. In some instances, in some situations like VA loans and FHA, sometimes if they don't like that, they can call the note due. So there's a little bit of delicacy there, but everything's done, with very, very strict legal contracts, and everybody's held accountable. And it just makes for a good situation to grow your wealth by helping somebody out of their property and helping them avoid a huge tax bill at the same time.
Wow, love it. And one question that I have too from earlier. You mentioned your dad was a realtor, commercial, and he was already. If you had to put like a list of 5 things you learned from your dad, because I'm assuming for you to jump at 19 years old and do that flip, I'm sure you had some education from your dad. What were like 5 things you learned from your dad? Yo, we'll be right back to this great episode of the $1 Million Hustle Podcast. Before we continue, I want you to go grab a copy of my book, The Power of Being Uncomfortable. It is out on Amazon. It is out on Barnes & Noble, Walmart.com, Target.com, and everywhere else books are available. The great news, guys, is you could go to BillyTheKid.com and grab an autographed copy. That is right. I'm going to mail you an autographed copy right now. Audiobook is also available on Audible, and everywhere else audiobooks are available. So go listen to it. Go grab yourself an autographed copy, and I'll see you on the other side, baby. And now back to this great episode of the $1 Million Hustle Podcast.
I learned the word relentless from my dad. Unfortunately, I lost my dad about 6 months ago, and he was really my compass. He was my mentor and everything. It was a tough blow. It was a massive heart attack in the middle of the night. I was on the road traveling, and I got a phone call at my Airbnb, and there was a sheriff on the other line, and it was really hard to go through. But my dad had a lot of tenacity, and the word relentless is something that he taught me. And you just got to keep your foot on the gas pedal like a cinder block. And, so he was constantly, even, I remember as I was a kid, real estate went through ups and downs. Everything was really flourishing when Reagan was president. And then when he left office, the real estate market really kind of took a really serious turn. And, and we went from feast to famine, for a number of years there, where it was very difficult to get by, and having a certain lifestyle instilled in you from birth, let's just say, until all of a sudden now you're a budding teenager and the ground's kind of pulled out from underneath you. And there was a lot of hills and valleys there. And that really deterred me from, getting into real estate, because I saw what that did to, my parents' relationship. I saw what that did to, our life. But again, my dad was absolutely relentless, and he just kept plugging away. And, he got involved in different facets of real estate. He was doing ground leases and doing anything that made sense to put money on the table, and he always prevailed. So that's the biggest thing. The other thing was boundaries. So being in real estate, being an agent or a broker, you really end up being a middleman negotiating out contracts. The seller says one thing, you take that to the buyer. Buyer says one thing, you take it back to the seller. You're going through all these contracts. And my dad, this is back long before computers, right? So my dad had a rubber stamp that said wrong on it. And when a contract would come into him and there was too many things that were just not fair, not prudent, he would just take this wrong stamp and stamp it on each page and then mail the contract back to them. And, it's having those kind of ironclad boundaries and, making sure that you're stern in those boundaries. It's not only respectable, but it really stops the bickering. It stops the back and forth, and it makes things more efficient. So, that's the next thing is efficiency. My dad had a decent sized real estate brokerage in San Diego, and it was all commercial. And he had developers that worked with him and everything, but he would delegate out. And that's what really made, his efficiencies, go up and made things really kind of hit an amazing peak that turned into a plateau for a lot of years. And, that's something that I've always known about. But for me, I guess the term control freak is a little harsh, but I'm of the adage, if you want something done right, you do it yourself. So I end up spreading myself too thin and taking on too many things because I know that I can get them to the finish line. I can trust that I can get them to the finish line. So I've had to kind of, swallow my own pill and remember that, delegation is really where it's at. So really over the last, 18 months, 24 months, is really when I started doing a lot of delegation. And, you and I were only 100% human. And if we have one task that we're designating that 100% to, then that task is rewarded with 100% focus and it's going to get done. But if we're trying to do 5 different things, we're now splitting everything up. And the best that everything can get is 20%, 20%, 20%. And if you're expecting a 100% goal, it's really hard to get to a quality goal with just 20% focus. So by bringing in the right amount of people and delegating out to those people that can give each specific task 100% focus, you end up moving faster. Everything's done with better quality. And everything has that laser focus that's required of every task that's integral. So delegation, efficiency, being relentless, those are really the top of mind things that come that I learned from my dad. And I guess another one would be just constantly learning, constantly surrounding yourself with people that know more than you do. When I was an actor as a kid, I had a talent manager and she said, never join an acting class where you're the best one because you're going to learn the least. And so I'm continually striving to surround myself with people that are much higher level than myself, so that I can learn from them. And I don't ask them, hey, so how did you get your first island? How did you get your first Lambo? I want to know really, what were the biggest mistakes and hurdles, and what are your daily current, hurdles and mistakes, and how do you overcome those? Because for me, we celebrate our wins and we learn from our losses. And I want to learn from everybody else's losses and, and take that and be able to run faster, stay away from costly mistakes. And that's what I end up turning and rolling into my students and my coaching is, really how to stay away from those financial speed bumps that can really trip you up.
Mm-hmm. And with that in mind, Forrest, I couldn't help but wanted to ask you, what's like one hump that you're facing right now? Like what's one, we'll call it lesson, right? That struggle that you're going through. And I'll give you an example. Like we're getting ready to land in Florida myself and stuff like that, and shout out to the investor doing it. And so obviously it's out of the comfort zone, right? Like I wrote a book called The Power of Being Uncomfortable. So I would like to hear what are you dealing with right now? And those of you who are listening, unfortunately, it doesn't get easier, right? Like we're just dealing with bigger numbers.
Yeah. You know what? It should never get easier. If it gets easy, then you're going to get complacent. And I love your book because I think you hit the nail on the head. And, if you're in your comfort zone, you're not pushing yourself. It's when we step outside of our comfort zone that things get real. So many people come to me that are just getting started in wholesale. They've done a few deals. They've made some money. And now, it's time for them to really get into a company, but they're still on a W-2 working for another job. And they're afraid, they're fearful of stepping out of that comfort. But when you step out of that comfort zone, that's when your ass is to the fire. That's when accountability comes into play. And that's when you really grow as a human being, as an entrepreneur, and, taking risks. And, risks can be a scary thing, but we have to learn fast. It's like very easily equatable to jumping into the deep end of the pool, taking those water wings off and jumping in. You have to swim or you die. You've got to stay above water. And, so I'm constantly pushing myself into new asset classes, into new things. I'm working on multi-billion-dollar portfolio deals right now, working with people that have $200 billion in their fund to deploy. The stories and the amount of rubbing elbows and the knowledge that I get from that is really, unparalleled. But there's always going to be things that we go through that, are either, frustrating, or, I always say sometimes we work really hard in sales for a little bit of money, and sometimes we don't really have to work at all and we get a huge chunk of change dropped in our lap. And then there's that middle area. I'm working on a deal right now, actually, that is going to be closing on March 31st, and it's in Naples, Florida. Oh
wow, nice.
It's a sweet deal. It's a sub-2 deal. The buyer's already put in all their EMD and everything's hard and ready to go. But the seller requires a lot of hand-holding and is asking the same questions over and over again. And even though the answers are there, it's a lot of hand-holding, and it takes up probably 30 minutes of my day every day. And then on the buy side, they have a transaction coordination team that is equally frustrating, because they have so many cooks in their kitchen. They have a multitude of people in their office, and one doesn't know that the other one got the answer, and they didn't table that answer, so they're asking the question over and over again. And I've got email threads as long as my legs that are a lot of back and forth. That'll be $185,000 assignment fee. So it's a good chunk of cheese at the end. But this deal specifically, I mean, I've had deals close effortlessly for $250,000 assignment fee. In Southern California, there's a lot of big spreads in SoCal. I always say, I don't know who said it, but I love it. The bigger the cookie, the bigger the crumb. So I like to work on big deals because it generates, a sizable income. But in any deal, it's always susceptible to hitting speed bumps or being frustrating. You just got to keep your eye on the prize and have enough going on your schedule to the point where you don't get complacent. I'm a procrastinator by nature. So if I don't have things back to back to back, I mean, I literally just hopped off another podcast to sit down and have this conversation with you. If I don't have things back to back, then I get complacent. So for me to be able to continually move forward all the time, I have to have an absolutely full schedule, full plate, whether that's meetings, whether that's podcasts or speaking events, or talking to sellers or talking to buyers or talking with transaction coordinators. Whatever it is, I stay as busy as possible because it pushes me. And it keeps me outside that comfort zone, because I'm constantly getting another notification that I've got another appointment to do another thing. And because I'm so busy, I don't necessarily have the time to do the homework on what that next thing is. So I'm continually jumping into the deep end of the pool with a new conversation, and it's sink or swim, dude. So, we just gotta constantly keep fighting and constantly keep pushing forward and staying as busy as possible with as many high level things as you can, and eliminating a lot of the noise on some of the low level stuff. That's a big thing too.
Wow. Love it. And I asked that towards the end, but since we're in the subject right now with the power of being uncomfortable, and, we have uncomfortable conversations in this podcast, because I think that's where growth happens. Right. And so with that being said, with the power of being uncomfortable, what is one way that you got uncomfortable that paid off? And obviously I keep hearing it over and over in your story, but if you had to pinpoint that one time that got you to where you're at, because I feel like everybody has those little moments, right? That as of right now, you never know. Like even this podcast alone, somebody listening, this could be a moment that we're going to go back to and remember 10 years from now, right? So what is one moment, and it could be recent or in the past?
Yeah, no, we take a lot of risk as entrepreneurs. Those risks are always scary. Usually I do my best to vet the exit strategy and look at everything from all angles. What are the A, B, and C of winning on this? What are the A, B, and C of losing on this? Always preparing yourself for the worst, so that you have to fight harder, and then achieving the best. And again, like my dad said, being relentless in your pursuit to always, get that goal achieved and knock it off of your list. But just walking into certain conversations last month, Cody Sperber and I were out in Miami with Grant Cardone. We were filming a podcast with Grant, and we all know who Grant Cardone is. He's Mr. 10X, and he's really a beast when it comes to buy and hold and real estate. And he has an amazing infrastructure. And I'm not one that necessarily gets intimidated, right? I've been around a lot of people. I've met crazy, legendary celebrities and had conversations with them. But something about going in and meeting Grant Cardone for the first time and spending a couple of days with him and going to lunch and things, there was a certain intimidation factor as to, well, gosh, I hope I can sit at the same table, and have a conversation. And again, it's deep end of the pool. It's sink or swim. And we became buddies, and we're Instagram buddies, and we DM each other back and forth, little quips. Send him some dad jokes every once in a while.
Love it.
But that was something that I had to take myself out of my comfortability zone.
Love it.
But really, when I was born and raised in Southern California, and working with Tarek El Moussa and the Flipper Flop crew in Orange County, it was an hour drive to get to work, and be there for the team every day and really dive in and be laser focused on the company. But really, anywhere in Southern California takes you an hour to get there, just depending on traffic.
Yeah,
but still, it was only an hour. When I left that position and was then faced with the opportunity to come out to Phoenix, Arizona, and work with Cody Sperber, that was a big challenge. That was a big decision that I had to take on, because I knew that I wasn't going to be driving home to have dinner with my kids every night. I knew that I was going to be staying in all these Airbnbs out here in Phoenix when I'm working. I knew that it was going to take me away from my family. And, that was a big challenge on me figuring out if that was the right move to make. And I had to look at the long-term learning experience. I had to look at the long-term wealth building opportunities that learning experience would springboard me into. And, my kids and I, we FaceTime every day, multiple times a day. And I'm in town. It used to be more frequently than it is now. Things have picked up a lot, and I'm extremely busy with speaking events and podcasts and meetings and coaching and mentoring. And, it's created a challenge as far as how often I'm actually in town. So, my kid's mom, she takes amazing care of them. And I go into town and I'm there probably now. It used to be every other week, and now last month, it was 3 weeks ago, I was home, and that had been 5 weeks. And now I probably won't be back for 6 weeks. But, with technology and FaceTime and all this stuff, it enables us to stay close. And I know everything that's going on, and I get pictures and I get voice clips, and it keeps us, close. But that personal interaction was something that I had to decide if it was going to be a worthwhile sacrifice in order to build legacy wealth for my family and for my kids. And when I was a kid and my dad went through the hills and valleys of making millions of dollars to making $0, and then rising back up out of the flames from that, there was a lot of feast and famine there. And that's one thing that I don't want my kids to go through that I went through. And my dad was very busy, and, I gave you kind of the bullet points on what I learned from my dad, but I could have learned a lot more. The business side of things and things like that. Those were conversations my dad and I never had. And I have those with my 7-year-old and my 9-year-old almost every day. And, my 9-year-old's idol is Elon Musk. He wants to be a CEO someday. And, he calls him Elon because apparently, they're super tight.
I love that.
And I talk to him and goes, "Hey, did you hear what Elon did with Twitter?" And I'm like, "No, bro, what happened? Tell me today."
That's awesome.
That's a lot of fun, but I want to make sure that they have that financial, not just a cushion, but a financial springboard and the business chops and acumen behind that to be able to know what to do with when, dad gives them at 18 or at 21 an endowment to be deployed into a business and not just go fuck off, not just go mess off with that money.
Oh, you're good.
and blow it. You know what I mean? Like that's the biggest thing. And fast cash is an easy thing to go and blow. And, I want to instill in them that's something that is very important. So I have multiple LLCs. Most of my properties are LLCs within themselves, owned by other LLCs that are owned by other LLCs. Everything that my kids have, it's all in a trust, which is owned by another trust. And that trust is owned by an offshore LLC. So I'm very protective of what I spend in taxes, of what I get in depreciation, so that all of the sacrifice that I'm making, really is something that can't be hurt, can't be rocked, and it's going to be something for them long term and presumably their kids as well. So, they're my motivating factor. I've got a picture of them on my desk. I have a picture of them on every desk at every office that I go in and spend time at. And, they're on my lock screen on my phone. So I'm constantly reminding myself of why I do what I do and why I make the sacrifices I make. And, a lot of people talk about work-life balance and, you work a certain number of days, you take a certain number of days off. I'm working very hard for the next few years so that I can take the remaining years off. So my work-life balance is a little bit more long view than I'll work Monday through Friday and take Saturday, Sunday off. I'm working Monday through Sunday for the foreseeable future so that then I can take Monday through Sunday off after that. It's all about financial freedom, but not just for me, really, really for my kids.
Wow. I love that. And you mentioned Grant Cardone in there. What is like one thing that stood out not meeting him? We obviously know, Ryan, shout out to the 10X community listening. What is like one thing that stuck out to you being face to face with him?
Just how charismatic he is. When we were actually filming the podcast, it was really unique to see how he interacts with everybody in the room. Cody was asking him a series of questions, and Grant wouldn't just deliver that answer to Cody. He was literally talking to me. He was talking to the camera guys and to Cody. And, he's very engaging. And he makes everybody feel as if they are part of, the conversation and part of what's happening. And, he's just very open and energetic that way. But from a real estate standpoint, we do a lot of development. I do a lot of development with Cody. And we have 11 new luxury builds where we scraped a lot and built from the ground up here in Scottsdale and Arcadia. They're all $3-4 million exits. They're all luxury properties. And, so we're developers. And, he said, he literally said, stop developing, man. He said, you just got to find properties and buy and hold them forever, as long as you can, and build up that equity. And, going back to, me buying my first house, that resonated with me as he was talking. I was just thinking, man, if I'd have just held on to one or both of those two properties that I got when I was young, the amount of equity and value that would be there today is surmountable. At 19 years old, if you go and spend, $215K, whether that's cash or you're getting a loan or whatever, and if I'd have held on to that, that one single act, I could have fucked off and done whatever I want after that. But if I still had that, just that one play would have made me a millionaire on its own. Right. So, it's all building blocks for the future, and you have to look long term. You can't be like, oh, I want to make $1 million this year, and then I'm just going to coast. I mean, that's cool, but you really have to have a long term play. You've got to have your eye on a long road and say, you know what, if I make $1 million this year, that's great, but let's do it every year and let's grow that, because I want to get to $100 million. Grant has a goal of being a trillionaire.
Wow.
He's a billionaire, but he has a goal of being a trillionaire. Do you know how far off that goal is and how hard he's got to run? He literally showed me on his phone one of his bank accounts. When you've got that many digits sitting in an account, and he goes, well, this is low. He said, because I just moved 50 million out yesterday to go buy a property, but that's where it's at. And I was like, damn, And so he can deploy capital anywhere because he's constantly getting these properties. They grow in equity. He pulls that out. He buys another one. He's constantly rolling through money. And, that's the biggest thing, is not blowing it on toys and nonsense, and just making sure that you're rolling that into equity and cash flow producing assets for the long-term play. Because do you really want to be still working and grinding it out, trying to find another deal when you're 65 years old because you've only, just gotten paycheck to paycheck? Build wealth and afford yourself that freedom to enjoy your golden years. I mean, I partied a lot when I was in my 20s. But if I can retire by the time I'm 55, which is really my goal. So I've got 10 years of hard knocks that I'm going to be putting in. I'm 44 now. Then, I've got from 55 until I'm, say, 85 of partying. I've got 30 years of having an even better time than I did when I was in my 20s. Stress-free, not trying to figure out life, just kicking back, watching the sunset, having a cocktail, and enjoying people. And that's really, that's kind of the end goal. And to just, have everything still keep running. So when my kids inherit it, they've got cash flow, they've got assets, and it's all set up already for them to just kind of take over and run, because hopefully I'll do a good job of instilling in them how to run it. So.
That's amazing hearing that with the whole Grant Cardone, man. And I definitely want to hear since you've been around Cody, man. He's killing the game. What are some of the stuff that you've learned from him?
You know, a lot of the things that Cody and I work on, are a lot of creative finance deals. We have something called the Clever Capital Fund, clevercapitalfund.com, and we've been promoting that. And really what that does is it enables people within the Clever community and outside accredited investors be able to park some capital and get in on a lot of the deals that that we're working on. And so I've learned a lot about finance. I've learned a lot about raising capital from Cody. And, we have a mastermind called the Avengers Mastermind, and I'm proud to be an Avenger. It's a very tight-knit group of high net worth individuals that have made the mistakes and made the wins to be ultimately very, very successful. And so, I work very closely with Cole Hatter. And that's how, I work with Pace and Jamil and all of these, very smart people. And so raising capital has been something that I've learned a lot about. Building planned communities, building 400-door apartment complexes. These are all things that were not within my wheelhouse. And, we talked about making that big decision to start working in Phoenix. That was the biggest part of my decision. I made a joke to Cody when he wanted me to come over here and work with him. I said, well, you better have a pen with a lot of ink. And he did. But it wasn't necessarily about the money. It was more to me about, increasing my knowledge, getting myself into more high level projects, more sustainable asset classes, and more sustainable wealth building opportunities. And that's exactly what I have received. I work along him. We've become great friends. We're out having dinner, or we're out having drinks, or, we're working in the studio, or we're flying different places and doing podcasts. And it's a lot of fun. And, I'm thankful that he's, kind of brought me into his inner circle with a lot of these folks. And it's just rubbing elbows with some of these people that have learned over doing very high level transactions. That's how I've literally parlayed from Avengers, being part of Avengers. Every time we have meetups 3 times a year. The last one was in Tampa. The one coming up is in Cancun. And then we've got another one in Temecula, Dan Fleischman's ranch down in Temecula, which is where I have property actually. So we're about golf swing away from one another down there. But Dan Fleischman is an amazing marketer, an amazing human being, and philanthropist. And I learn a lot, from working with Dan too. So it's not just learning from Cody. It's really learning from the entire inner circle of this top level group of investors and players that, has grown my knowledge base and has given me the confidence to be able to walk into, like right now, I have a $62 billion luxury hotel portfolio deal that I'm in the middle of. And, I talk about big cookie and big crumbs. I mean, a 0.5 percentage point of that equates to, game-changing FU money.
Yeah.
And, there's another one that I'm working on that's a $20 billion famous casino on the Strip in Vegas. And, getting into some of these high level deals, you're dealing with people that do these deals on a daily basis. This is what their life has become. So being in those conversations, listening to how they communicate, listening to the verbiage that they utilize and how they view things and kind of their whole purview of things is knowledge that you can't pay for. And, the day I stop learning is the day I'm dead. So, for me, absorption and taking that knowledge and applying it into not just business, but every facet of my life, really makes the difference. And Elon Musk and Richard Branson both said the same thing at different times. And I don't even know that they communicated on this whatsoever, but they said, if you want to be a billionaire, your top 5 friends should be billionaires. And that's how you learn. So just surrounding myself with these folks has, skyrocketed my personal net worth, skyrocketed my knowledge and understanding of how the intricacies and behind the scenes and behind the contracts, mechanisms work on all of these big deals. And, without that knowledge, I wouldn't even be able to confidently walk into a room or even get a seat at the table. So, that's really the biggest takeaway from, working, day in and day out with Cody Sperber. He's a very, very smart, high level individual. He functions on a whole nother level. He's very personable, funny guy. People enjoy him. And, he's got, I think over the last 18 years, something like 37,000 students that he's mentored and enabled them to make wealth in real estate. So, going to the top of the food chain on who knows the most and can navigate the industry the best was the biggest reason why I decided to contract and work with Cody as my top priority. So, yeah.
Wow. Whew. Fire. And what is happiness to you? How do you define happiness and joy? And
for me, I'm a big culture guy. I'm a big ecosystem guy. So in an office environment, the biggest happiness to me is seeing that people enjoy their job. And I'm not saying enjoyment is them playing grab ass and making jokes and screwing off in the office all day. I mean, enjoying what they're actually doing. And, oftentimes people, it's in sales, sometimes you win them, sometimes you lose them. So there's ebbs and flows and hills and valleys to being on a run and just crushing it. You can be the top performer for 3 months straight and then go absolutely dry for another 2 months. But if you enjoy what you do and you enjoy your environment, those hills and valleys become way less peaked, and your downtime when you're on a down slope, it's not that bad because you still enjoy what you're doing. So for me, business happiness is making sure that my partners and the people that I'm in business with are happy, making sure that the staff of me and all my partners, they're happy and they really enjoy what they do. They're getting rewarded. They're going on field trips. We're doing fun activities, and you're not just hoarding all the revenue for yourself. You're not taking them out to the parking lot to look at your Lamborghini. You're letting them drive it. You're taking them to a raceway and letting them experience Ferraris and Lamborghinis and doing team building activities. So on a business level, for me, it's making sure that everybody is enjoying what they do. If they don't enjoy it, then I'm doing something wrong. I need to put the pieces together better for them. I am failing them as an owner, as an operator, as a manager. And it's up to me to make sure that not only are they confident in their position, but that they're happy. So that's the business side. The personal side for me, I'm a people pleaser. So, the people that are around me, my friends, I buy them little gifts and, things that are sentimental, and, spending time with my kids and, making sure that they're happy and satisfied and they know that they're loved and taken care of and they're protected. And that confidence is always there. Even though that daddy is on the road a lot, my kids know very well how much they're loved and how much they're taken care of. And they know why daddy does what daddy does. It's for the family. It's to create the best life for them. And, they're very happy. Of course, they're spoiled and I get them whatever they want. Or if since this is, recorded, Santa gets them a lot of things that they like. Just making sure that my friends, my family, my kids, everybody feels loved, feels happy, and feels like they're accepted. And that's, happiness for me. Money comes, money goes. So I try not to dwell on anything like that. Luckily, over the past couple of years, I've been able to build a solid portfolio and net wealth that is kind of something that can't be rocked. So those aren't, concerns that I have anymore. But years ago, when you're working hard to come up with a paycheck to pay your rent, that's, stress is a killer. And, you internalize those things, and, you really need to focus on what makes you happy. And if you're happy, then you make better decisions. You don't make good decisions when you're stressed or when you're desperate. And I've been fortunate enough to be in a position to make really good decisions over the past few years. And because I don't have financial stress, I don't have a lot of these things that other people just can't get out from underneath or can't get out of their own way, to get there. So financial freedom is my goal. I could do that now, but I'm not done yet. And, I told you earlier, there's been a lot of chapters to my life, and I don't know what chapters after this are coming. There's a gentleman by the name of Robert G. Allen. He's written, about 11 New York Times bestsellers. He's been around since the 80s, and he's kind of the OG when it comes to wholesaling and real estate investing and getting in with creative terms and seller finance and a lot of these things. And I am lucky enough to speak on the same stage as Robert. And a lot of the times I'll speak before him or after him, but we're always kind of sandwiched together. And what's funny is I have known Robert now since I was 12 years old. So 30 plus years.
Wow.
His daughter was my very first girlfriend. And so, you know, we reminisce about going to Vegas and staying at the MGM and our families hanging out together. And, you know, he knew my dad very well as well. So that was a big shock to Robert when my dad passed away. But, you know, that's something that I never thought of. I used to see Robert at G. Allen at, you know, 11 o'clock at night on an infomercial, walking past his helicopter and his airplane saying, you know, buy my VHS tape and I will show you how to succeed in real estate.
That's crazy.
And I always just thought, man, this guy just is the guy, you know, and I've told him that. He knows that. And,
That's awesome.
but you know, now we speak on the same stage, and you know, we share ideas, and you know, we follow each other, and it's really cool.
Wow, love it. And so to kind of get to the next thing, with music, so I'm a musician myself. I do some hip hop, and you mentioned earlier, like you mentioned
awesome.
earlier.
I was listening to some of it. I see your speakers back there. You probably have a studio all set up. Yeah, dude, I hear you. It's in your blood. I get it.
And it's crazy. You mentioned just I related to real estate a lot because of the long term, right? Because in my head, I'm like, no matter what numbers I do, I'm gonna keep growing that, and it is something you could pass on, you know, after you leave. So, how was that like doing music, and what kind of music was it? I need to do a little more research on that.
No, it was all rock. Everything was pretty heavy rock stuff, you know, melodic, no screaming stuff, but, you know, big walls of guitars and kind of, I guess I'm maybe similar to like Audio Slave and some of that. But, you know, it was a lot of fun. You know, I mean, it's still in my blood, but, you know, my guitars, most of them are still hanging on the wall, collecting dust with rusty strings. You know, I just don't get very much time to take myself away and put myself in a headspace to do the kind of emoting that I needed to do back then. You know, back then I really didn't have anything going on except music and relationships and everything that pours itself into a good song. So I had a lot of material back then, you know, and a lot of music. We talk about hardships and things like that. And fortunately or unfortunately, however you want to look at it, I haven't had, you know, the same type of hardships that really can come up with a song. I've written songs about my kids over the past couple of years. So my songwriting, there's over 200 songs in my catalog, and there's about 42 that are published, and they're all on the sad side of things, right? Even if they're upbeat and they sound cool, or they're a ballad, or they're heavy, they're always talking about something that has a dark tint to it. So my music writing and composing, you know, has all turned to this happy place, and that's totally different and totally new, you know, for me. So you know, unfortunately, because I keep my schedule so packed, I just don't have time to really break myself away. I started bringing, I have a travel size Martin acoustic guitar that I got, and I bring that around with me. But again, it sits in its bag so much that, you know, it's few and far between when I can break it out and actually do something with it. But, you know, I'll go to a party, or I'll go somewhere and somebody got wind that, you know, my previous life was all music, and I'll walk into the party and they're as a goof, they're playing my music and whatever. And you know, it's cool. It's cool.
That's
but,
awesome.
Yeah, it's been a totally changed life, you know, for me. And not saying that, you know, someday I'm going to be the retired guy doing some sort of, you know, residency at some bar somewhere doing some cover tunes. Sure, let's go. But right now I'm just so focused on music that even my travel guitar that I bring with me doesn't even get much use. So there's a certain, you know, unfortunate, you know, side to that. But the upside is that I'm crushing it at what I am focused on. And, you know, as you well know, music is never guaranteed. And even with the small amount of success that I did have in music, it's very fleeting, and it doesn't make you a millionaire. You know, it takes a long career and the right people involved, and you know, keeping the snakes out of your contracts in music that enable you to actually have some sort of money you can walk away with. And you know, so much of the music industry is all flash, and you end up spending that money on flash. Now, if you can, you know, put that in a YouTube, you know, channel and make money off of it, great. If that's your brand that, you wear, Flavor Flav clocks and whatever, then absolutely. But, those things are all expensive. And, it's very difficult to get ahead in the music industry. The competition is crazy. And with YouTube and TikTok and all of these mediums now where anybody who has any talent anywhere can be seen. I was doing this 25 years ago. So when I opened my mouth and sang and played the guitar, I was the best thing they'd ever heard, because they never heard anybody else. So it was a much different, it was a whole different world back then. So now it would be extremely difficult and total uphill battle. And, I feel, it's tough for all these musicians out there right now that are trying to strive and get ahead. And, my heart goes out to them, but, you got to make sure you have something that you can count on. Now I sound like my parents, always telling me, music's great, we'll support you, but if we're not being unsupportive, but if it doesn't work out, what are you going to do? And I was always with my chest puffed up. Well, my plan B is my plan A. And, I don't have to fall back on anything. I'm going to make this work. And, to a certain extent that worked. But, after a while, you kind of grow up and you evolve and you realize that there's things that are more important. Family, taking care of your kids, and building some sort of structure for your family, so that they don't, if some, God forbid, if something happened, you get hit by a bus, that they're not completely upside down and out in the cold. So for me, that's a big reason why I poured myself into business, and it was an easier thing for me to close the door on being a full-time musician, because I knew that, hey, I don't want to just be a single guy that's out, screwing around all the time and playing music and getting drunk. I'm gonna need to be a respectable human being at some point. I'm gonna need to, pull my big boy pants up and actually do something with my life. And that's really what motivated me to get into business, was just the stability of it, and being able to create something that was lasting. Music's lasting, right? We can still hear the same recordings from 20 years ago, but the money from it is not. And so everything comes out of style after a while. So unless you're on that golden oldies, album, it's fleeting. So, that's why business is now such a strong point for me. And music is an amazing part of my history, but, it doesn't necessarily have a place right now in my life, because it's so competitive, and it's just such a hard industry.
We'll be right back. Before we continue, go subscribe to Billy the Kid YouTube. That is Billy, DHAKID. Also, go follow Billy the Kid Music on Spotify, Pandora, Apple Music, and everywhere else music is available. And now, back to this great episode. Let's go.
Hopping out the tube, though, we're number 2-4. Feel like Kobe, though I'm winning, need to do more. My mama sorry, college wasn't for me. Street smart, no degree, just like Kobe. Self-made boss with a suit like a mogul. I'm the new era, you see it on my logo.
Throughout your story, I keep hearing long-term wealth. Basically, what does that mean to you? What's long-term wealth? And I believe patience is definitely a big key to that. If you could touch a little bit on just patience, like what have you done to be patient while you're building this?
Well, patience is something that you have to really grill into yourself. It's like trying to break a habit. It's like people that chew their fingernails have to go, nope, I'm not going to chew my fingernails. Right. Same thing with patience. You literally have to grind it into yourself. Okay, I'm going to be patient. I have to be patient. So I told you, I mentioned that I went to Pepperdine University in Malibu, California, and it's a beautiful campus. It's right in Malibu, right on the water. It's just gorgeous. And when I was a musician, I used to go to the same place every night, this bar restaurant right next door to the Troubadour, where I used to play. It was called Dan Tanis, and I'd go in there and I'd eat and I'd have drinks, and it kind of became like my Cheers, right? The TV show Cheers. And I knew everybody and everybody knew me, and I was fortunate enough to meet this gentleman by the name of Richard Sieber, and he was in his 80s, 3-piece suit, bow tie. Here I am with black nail polish and eyeliner, and but we became friends. And Richard Sieber donated all that land to Pepperdine for it to build its campus there. And the undergraduate campus at Pepperdine has a big sign that says Sieber College. And that can be confusing, if you don't know, if you're not aware of the backstory. So Pepperdine offered Richard Seaver $150 million to remove his name from the campus. And his response was, I'd rather have the legacy. And to turn down $150 million. And as he told me this story, I mean, I have goosebumps now, but to tell me that story, it made the hair on my arms raise, because that's power. To be able to say, you know what, I would rather have the legacy. And the legacy for what? Is it ego? No, it's really for his kids, because now his kids can grow into, as adults, they have that notoriety behind them. They have those open doors to them, that philanthropic, side to the family that never goes away. And there's a lot of oil wells off the coast of Long Beach in California. If those of you who haven't seen those, they're little rock piles and an oil well. And that was his company. It was called Hydra Oil. And one day we were out to lunch, and we were sitting at a tall table, and this was about 3 weeks before he passed away. He was 84, and his girlfriend, fiance, who was 41. And the three of us were sitting at the tall table. So our feet were kind of swinging, and he was kicking his legs back and forth. And I said, "What's up, Dick? Why are you so happy?" And he said, and he looked at his girlfriend, and she said, "Tell him." He said, "Well, I sold my share of Hydro Oil today." And I was like, damn. He goes, "It was a $900 million day."
Wow.
And, he had photos in his house of going on safaris and doing all the quintessential stuff that you would expect to see in an uber wealthy, older gentleman's, house, right? In the library, and leather bound chairs and all the stuff, right? And him turning down that $150 million for the legacy, him being able to cash out on something that he had built for decades to make almost $1 billion in one day. I was just literally, this was a couple of months before I went and started working for the UFC, which was kind of the tail end of me working in the entertainment industry. And it just stuck with me. And that was really what I said, you know what? There's no way that I will ever make $900 million in a day as a musician. There is no way, even if I'm Steven Tyler, that I would give up $150 million for a legacy play. So it was really like, wow, you've got to get into business. You've got to build something and stick with it and be relentless over decades of building to be able to have that kind of long-term wealth and that kind of exit strategy. And he was a guy that just kept working. He was working up until, a year or so before he passed away, because he loved it, not because he had to. So he was free no matter what. He just chose to keep his nose in things and keep his finger on the pulse and continue to make money and build wealth. And so he was a big factor for me as well on
wow.
What can be achieved if you just stick to it.
Love it. And as much as I hate to, we got to wrap it up. You got to go do big things. Cause I could listen to you forever, man. You got me ready to roll. At the end of the show, we ask the same questions to every guest, just for wisdom purposes. And the first one that I have is, if you were to look back at your younger self, what would be one piece of advice you would give yourself?
See things through for longer. Spend more time on things. We talked about patience earlier. Be patient with things. You don't always have to take the first offer that comes up. You don't always have to make snap decisions. Knee-jerk reactions have no defenses. And if you don't have a defense mechanism up to really protect your long-term play, you end up making short-term decisions. And again, we don't know what we don't know. So, going back 20 years ago, I didn't know the things I have now. So I wouldn't go back in time and change anything, because it's made me who I am today. But I'm able to take the perspective that I have now and recollect all those things that I went through, and now apply those lessons and understand them. And it helps me to pivot in my business today. So patience is a virtue, and it's something that has to be instilled into yourself. And, don't make snap decisions. You've got to see things through. I do a lot of PPC marketing, a lot of Google AdWords, and I run, I have a team of marketers that work underneath me, and they oversee a lot of campaigns. And so many people that pay them to run their campaigns say, well, it's been 2 weeks, it's not working, let's make a change. You really have to take time and spend money to have that studyable data to make a good educated decision to steer the ship. So, patience, we talked about it earlier, and, sometimes patience is outside of your comfortability zone. So, making sure that you force yourself to be patient, even if it's uncomfortable. You're going to learn from it. You're going to be able to make better decisions and more long-term decisions.
Love it. And then, so the $1 Million Hustle is for those people that are maybe they want to get to that milestone, right? And honestly, I always say, like, even if there's a lot of people like 50K a year could change their life, 100K, 250, right?
Sure.
So, if you had to, and so it's going to be a book that I'm going to put out. And so, what do you think are the 3 habits that you would say if you do these 3 things, you are going to be successful? You're going to be successful in your $1 Million Hustle. What are the 3 things that you would say?
One is get out of your own way, and that's married to delegation. Okay. So delegate's the second biggest point. You've got to be able to delegate things out to other people. You absolutely cannot run a business efficiently if you're trying to do everything yourself. So hire the right people, even though that's an added overhead or an additional expense. First of all, you got to make sure you have enough money coming in. Don't rob Peter to pay Paul, as they say. But if you have that income coming in, don't just hoard it and say, well, I'm just doing this all myself. Delegate out, and I guarantee you're going to run faster. So, another, big aspect of it is, constantly learn, join seminars, join masterminds, pay for coaching. Even if you're like, oh, I'm making $2 million a year, I could teach other people. There's people out there that are making $20 million a year. Yeah, you can still learn a lot. You have a long way to go. I say the day I stop learning is the day I'm dead. So hopefully that's, in my late 80s or early 90s or however long God blesses me on this planet. But, I'm going to learn a lot between now and when I'm 90 years old. And there's nothing that I wouldn't sit down and listen to hear from somebody who's 85 years old, because I'm going to learn something from them. I'm going to learn a different perspective from them that's far greater than what I can possibly hope to ascertain in 44 years. So surround yourself, go to masterminds, go to meetups, go to seminars, hire a coach, do consulting calls, buy programs. Those are all write-offs, by the way. Seminars, masterminds, buying programs, those are all write-offs for your business. If you've got everything under an LLC, which I highly suggest everybody protect themselves and get LLCs set up. They're very affordable. You can do it online in a matter of minutes, and it takes a very short amount of time to have your EIN, open a bank account. Very easy stuff. But and build your credit. You can get credit. You can get no interest, $500,000 worth of credit lines for your business. I have a guy that does that for me on different LLCs that I have, and you can roll that capital over. But constantly be learning, grow your patience level, be relentless, and just surround yourself with people that enable you to constantly level up in every conversation. Don't be the smartest person in the room, and delegate everything out to people that really can give laser focus to very specific tasks so that you can continue to drive the ship. The captain of the ship is not also battening down the sails, is not also rowing. The captain of the ship, his job is to be the damn captain and steer. The rowing guy, he does the rowing. The person who battens down the hatches, that's their job.
Wow.
It's like at the Tesla factory. You never see the door guy at the Tesla factory take a break to run down and help the tire guy. Because as a boss, the door's not being handled. So do I fire the door guy? But then also the tire got put on wrong because the door guy wasn't trained to do that. So do I fire the door guy for the door job or for the tire job? And then what about the tire guy that didn't do his job? So everybody has a lane. Everybody's got a role. You've got to have SOPs, standard operating procedures for every job, every role, and everybody's got to be focused. So, and then you delegate out people to handle those SOPs and those jobs so that they're laser focused and things get done properly.
Wow. Fire. And if you have one book in your head right now, what is the theme and title of it?
So I was listening to What to Say for real estate agents. I forget the name of the author off the top of my head, but basically it's a very short book. If you're a reader, or a very short listen, if you're like me and you have everything on Audible when you're on a treadmill. But it basically does a lot of different scenarios and situational things. It's not just preaching to you how to handle different sales, scenarios, different conversations, different marketing techniques. It's all situational, and they're talking about real life experiences and going through things that they went through. And it's not just for real estate agents. It really applies to real estate investing as a whole. And it gives a great perspective. I think there's 13 chapters, and it's less than an hour. It's about an hour if you take out the index and the glossary and the about me section. But it's a good one, and I suggest for everybody to do that. EOS is another really good book to look at.
And if I asked you overall, like, what's one book that comes to your head that has changed your life completely, whether it's older or recent?
Gosh, now you're making me dig into my Audible library and look through, because I listen to so many different books, and that comes back to the whole learning side of things. Sales EQ is a really good book. Never Finished by David Goggins. First of all, David Goggins is absolutely phenomenal. And there's another book by Mark Manson called The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. That's a good one. Getting to Yes is another good one. But the one that I mentioned earlier is Exactly What to Say for Real Estate Agents by Phil M. Jones. And for those of you out there who have a hard time talking to people or are afraid of getting on the phone or talking to sellers or doing sales, there's a book called Talking to Strangers by Malcolm Gladwell that I give out to any team that I coach or any team that I work with. And that's another good one to kind of help people get, into a comfort zone of talking to people and get confident. So, but my library is so long of things that I go through and I listen to, and I don't just finish an entire book. I'll listen to part of one, I'll listen to part of another. And because to me, it's really about, getting a wealth of knowledge and, learning as much as possible and picking up the finer points if possible.
Do you listen to it in 1X?
No.
I figured. I knew it too, because I don't either.
I can't. I can't. I'm one of those people that I'm a cinder block on a gas pedal. I want something done quickly, and I try to squeeze as much time in as I possibly can to everything. So for me, it's all about speed and efficiency. So I love it. I've got those on a much faster replay.
I love it. And then where can people find you?
Yeah, so everything's on my website, forrestblackburn.com. There's 2 R's in Forrest and Blackburn, just like it sounds. forrestblackburn.com. I welcome you to book a consulting call if you feel like you want to scale your business, or if you just want to work out the bugs in your current infrastructure, or if you want to build an infrastructure. I have coaching programs on there as well. I've got one-on-one coaching. I've got group coaching calls that I do. And then I also have a master course through a software called InvestorLift that just was released. And that's something that you can replay at any time. It's got, I think, 5 different modules and over a dozen different chapters of everything from lead gen and PPC to building your team to scripting to infrastructure management, all the way from C-level down to sales management, all of it. So, and that's something that you can buy the course and you can listen to it during the day or watch it over a bag of Cheetos at 2 a.m. if you want to. But those are all on my website. You can find me on Instagram and Facebook and LinkedIn. It's all Forrest Blackburn on there. But I'm always available, and I'm always here to help, and I'm always here to bounce things off of. I want to be a good sounding board for people. And most of all, I want to be able to instruct people on how to stay away from costly mistakes, be more efficient, and not overspend on things and spend smart to be able to grow your business and grow your people and your systems and your processes. And there's so many components to it, but so much of it is overlooked by so many. And I'm happy to be a resource for that. So forrestblackburn.com, and I'm easy to find.
Love it. Thank you so much for your time, and this has been amazing. I can't wait to listen to it myself. Those of you who are listening, wherever you're listening, make sure you guys screenshot and tag him, tag me on social media, and we're going to reshare it. Leave us a 5-star review if you truly feel like this was, which honestly, I would say 10. And, I like to say every episode is like a book that you can listen to, and if you apply it, and today was no different, guys. Those of you who are listening, take action. So with that being said, subscribe, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Vamonos.
Go. Different levels of thinking, and we both right. But my mindset is on growth with the future bright. Close-minded people mad at me that I'm speaking facts. Or maybe could it be that I'm getting wrecked? Open your mind, gotta open it to receive. I'm always 10 toes for what I believe. Close-minded people mad at me that I'm speaking facts. Or maybe could it be that I'm getting wrecked? Open your mind, gotta open it to receive. I'm always 10 toes for what I believe. I've heard it all, this and that, and I got an ego. Y'all pigeons, I don't flock together like a